Hi everybody, my name is Rick. Welcome to my Idaho cabin. When I think of the Old West and mountain cabins, I think about sourdough bread. The smell, the taste is just wonderful. The starter I use traces its origins back to the mid-1800s in Alaska. A friend gave it to me years ago and I have maintained it ever since. Today I will start to revive a powdered form of that starter. How the starter got to the powdered state will be the subject of another video. First, let me explain that a sourdough starter is a living, breathing organism. With proper care, it will grow, thrive, and make delicious bread, pancakes, waffles, and biscuits. Treat it like a precious child and you will be rewarded. To start the starter, you will need lukewarm water, about 85 to 90 degrees. Some powdered starter, and some all-purpose flour. First, let me talk about the water. If you live in a city with highly chlorinated water, or worse, water that contains chloramines, use bottled spring water to start your starter. After it develops and matures, you can try using the tap water. If your tap water doesn't kill the starter at that point, then you should be safe using it. This is my sourdough starter in granular form. To start the starter, I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of lukewarm water, about 85 to 90 degrees, into a glass. And then I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of the starter to that glass. And I'm going to let that soften for about 5 to 10 minutes. Be back in about 10 minutes. Now that the starter has softened, I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon of flour, all-purpose flour, to the mix. And then a little more water to get to the consistency of pancake batter. Try that. That looks about right. Okay, now I have my portable light in the oven to raise the temperature in there to about 85 degrees. So this is now going into the oven at about 85 degrees and it'll sit for 4 to 12 hours and hopefully it will start up and start to bubble. Back then. Last night I fed the starter and this morning we have activity. So now we're going to add a little bit more flour, about another 2 tablespoons, and some warm water. We want a pancake batter consistency. That's good. Now I'm going to cover this lightly with plastic wrap and put it back in the oven at about 85 degrees. Today I'm going to take pity on you. The sourdough starter that I started on Sunday has now risen 3 or 4 days. Today is Friday. So I'm going to feed it and show you what it looks like today, and then I'll come back next week, because feeding a starter is like watching grass grow. It's just real slow and boring. So anyway, here's what it looks like today. As you can see, I've transferred this into a plastic measuring cup, and you see how nice and foamy that's getting? That shows that it's starting to get active. It's not quite there yet, but it's getting there. Okay, so now I'll stir it down. Let's see if you can see that. There we go. Okay, I'm going to stir that down. Now we'll add some flour. Right now we can probably add about, at this stage of the game, we can add about 2 tablespoons of flour at every feeding. 2 good round tablespoons. And stir that in. See if I can show you. And it's a little dry, so I'm going to add a little bit of water. Now I know if I try to tip this up and show it to you, it's going to spill, but we'll try. That's about where we want it. Okay, so back into the oven it goes. So at this point in time, we're feeding it twice a day, and in about another week it should be really active and ready to be used in some recipes. And then we'll start baking. Hi everybody. Well, it's now about 10 days since the sourdough was started, and I think it's active enough that I can try, and I'm going to make some waffles this morning. So here's what I have. I have a bowl of the waffle starter, 4 eggs, lightly scrambled, lightly beaten, a cup and a half of flour with 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 4 tablespoons of oil, and a little baking soda. So I'll show you how we put that together, but first I want to show you what the starter for the waffles looks like. What I did last night was to mix 1 cup of the starter with 2.5 cups of buttermilk, 1 cup of flour, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now I mixed that up and covered it and let it sit overnight in a warm spot. The rest of the starter that I had, I refreshed, and that's going to be my ongoing starter. So today we're going to add to the starter, we're going to add 4 eggs, 4 tablespoons of oil, and then we're going to add about 1.5 cups of flour and the salt. So this was a little over 1.5 cups of flour, so we're just going to adjust the consistency with this. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, it looks like the 1.5 cups of flour makes it just about the right consistency. So we got to have it all mixed up here. I'm going to put some of the batter into a mixing or a measuring cup and so it'll be a little easier to pour. Now that the waffle iron is hot, I'm going to spray it with a little non-stick spray, and then we'll pour the batter in. I'm going to add a few of Smokey's blueberries, make them a little fancy. Okay, we'll let the waffle iron do its thing. The waffle iron has just about stopped steaming, so it's time to take it out and see what we have. There we go. Now that looks good enough to eat. Well, I'm here to tell you this is frigging delicious. Has a nice sourdough flavor, and the sweetness of the blueberries is terrific. Gotta try this. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining me on this episode of My Idaho Cabin. The breakfast was absolutely delicious. Anyway, if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, please look down below and hit on the subscribe button, and you won't miss an episode. Also, you can go to my webpage at www.myidahocabin.com, and you can get the recipes. You can download the recipes from there and get all sorts of information. So until next time, this is Rick at My Idaho Cabin.